What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I just wanted to kind of address a topic, more thoroughly than I have in the past, and that's kind of my problems with Marvel Studios, or just with Marvel. And it kind of goes for all comic book franchises, currently, look, this is mainly to deal with the films and kind of the production and the people that work on them and just everything surrounding it, and I'm going to get into some deep, political territory, so to speak, and kind of a little, some more mature topics in this video, so if you don't really want to hear that sort of thing, that's fine. I briefly touched on some of this stuff in my final WandaVision video, but I felt that I owed you guys a more thorough explanation of where my distaste for Marvel has come from. A lot of you may feel like it's come out of the blue, because a couple years ago I was making non-stop Marvel videos about how much I loved it, and here I am kind of trashing on it a lot of the time. And, there are a lot of reasons for that, and mainly just some just general reasons of my own, are the fact that I just don't like the fan base anymore. Star Wars, at least as of recently, since the new sequel movies, has become pretty fun, and it's kind of a fun place. My friend and I, we're big into Star Wars now. I got him into all the shows and stuff, and we're kind of deep into it now, and we watch Bad Batch together. We have fun times together, but there was kind of a time where he was all for Marvel, he was the Marvel aficionado, and he's now more on my side, I feel, after, we've kind of talked more over it, but I started to see through him and some other people this weird, undying love for Marvel, no matter what they make. And there's this weird stigma that I've seen where people are like, "Are you a Marvel fan?" I commented on some post where I recently, I forget where it was either YouTube or Instagram, and I said, I'm going to skip Black Widow. I'm probably not going to watch it, right? And someone replied to me and said, "Are you a Marvel fan?" And I don't understand this weird kind of idea that in order to be a fan of something, you have to love everything they do. I like Star Wars. You guys know that. I've been making a lot of Star Wars videos recently, and that's simply because I enjoy talking about it. It's something that I like and that I enjoy, and I feel they've been doing a good job with recently. That doesn't mean I love all of Star Wars. There's some mediocre movies. I still feel like Rogue One is kind of a mediocre movie in some respects, and I don't really like the sequel movies that much at all. Looking back on them, I'm willing to accept them. They aren't nearly as bad as some of the recent Marvel stuff, in my opinion, of course, but, I don't love all of it. I don't love everything that Star Wars has done, That doesn't mean, that I'm not a fan. And, in terms of Marvel, if you were to ask me if I'm a fan at this point, I would say no. That doesn't mean that I am incapable of liking it and liking things that they produce. I'm just not a fan of the corporations. I don't like even some of the directors, some of the higher-ups. There's just a lot of, political, there's, the hierarchy, all that. There's a lot of hypocrisy in that, and I just feel like a lot of the actors get pulled into this kind of stuff. They kind of, in some ways, put themselves out there to be put in the middle of this, but, the main thing I talked about in my WandaVision video was kind of Marvel acting as though they're going to represent certain groups of people. I know people see this, stuff like that as, propaganda, political propaganda, shit like that. I don't feel that way. I feel like it's important to represent groups. My best friend is gay, so I feel, an obligation. I have a lot of friends, my best friend, and then a lot of my friends are gay, so I don't feel I feel kind of an obligation to, push for stuff like that, and I feel it's important to have representation in forms of media, and I feel like Marvel just kind of lies about it. They say they're going to do it, and they don't. They don't push for anything. They're just being cowardly. They're always cowardly, and I guess it's just kind of, you're going to have to come to expect that. But also, it's not just that. It's also the way they treat, certain groups of people, especially women, in their franchises. This has been a problem in franchises for years, is the constant, sexualization of women, I suppose. You have to put them in, the tight leather outfit, and you have to constantly, have the camera at uncomfortable angles, so to speak. of their bodies, and it just, when I watch stuff like that, it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. My best friend is a woman, and I know that she doesn't feel comfortable with stuff like that. It's just like, it feels uncomfortable. It's like, why do you do this? Like, they seem to think that, like, I know that a majority of, or like, there's a large amount of the Marvel audience that is made up of women, but it seems like Marvel thinks that all they have to do is have a woman in a movie fight people and be cool, and that's it. Like, okay, they fought a person, so therefore that means we're representing women. No, you need to stop portraying women in the way that movies did in, like, whatever, the 19th century or the 20th, like a long time ago. Like we're not in the 19th century anymore. We need to actually move forward. Like, you can't just have, you can't just put a person, like, whether it be women or a certain race or anything like that. You can't just put them in a movie and have them fight people and do cool shit and be like, oh, we're representing them. Because no, you need to actually treat them as though they're people. And the way that they portray, these certain groups of people in their franchises doesn't lend to, improving the worldview on certain groups of people. It just, if anything, it adds to more, like, it contributes to more people viewing people in that way in real life. I know that a lot of people out there, like younger people, the type of media they consume, kind of shapes the way they view other people around them. And the fact that Marvel is promoting stuff like that kind of just disturbs me a little bit, because, it's like, we're gonna portray stuff like this, and then younger people who are very impressionable and who a lot of whom view these films and shows are going to see that and think it's okay to view other people in that light. The way that Marvel, like, the way that their characters talk about stuff, and it's like Stan Lee, he designed the characters, the idea of, like, hope, and the children can imagine themselves like these characters. And I get that, and, like, the way that women are portrayed in the movies, it's something that, where it was present in the comics back in the 60s. I get that. I get all that. It's been like that in the comics, but we don't need to continue this cycle. We don't need to continue doing that. We need to actually portray people as people and not just objects. It's not just women either. It's every movie. You have to have some scene where the male character takes their shirt off or something, just, there's always some uncomfortable scene, and it never feels natural. I never feel like there's a reason for it. It's just there, I don't know, because Marvel thinks they have to do that or something, but it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to support that, I don't want to, like, support them, like, imprinting or making the impression on people, like younger people in particular, that stuff like that is okay. And it's not just me, it's not just the audience, because even Scarlett Johansson herself said she didn't like the way, she came out and said that she didn't like the way her character was portrayed in Iron Man 2. And I agreed, she was portrayed horribly in that movie. It was basically just like an object for the male characters in that film, And I feel like she's totally justified to do that. People are going after her, saying that she's biting the hand that feeds her, and after her contract's done, she's going out trashing the studio. But how do you not know that she's felt like that the entire time? I've had, Scarlett Johansson's still a person, even though she's a movie star. Like, I've had times when I have, not been comfortable with something for a long time, and it's only now where I feel comfortable, actually saying it. And she actually came out and said that, she actually came out, and people are like, people are arguing, saying, oh, she didn't get the quote right because Tony Stark didn't say that exact line, he said something else, But she's just using that as an example. Either way, it's an objectifying line toward her as a character, and throughout that film, no one really treats her like a person. It's a problem. I don't want to support stuff like that, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be stopping. It seems like they just continue this. Whether or not it's getting more subtle, it just, they keep having to push this in there, and it's like, it seems like they, they're kind of incapable of stopping it. For some reason, that's something the studio just has to put in there. I don't know why, but, like, I'm just using that as an example, as the fact that, there are problems really within kind of the whole, like, system, I think, this is kind of, I guess, a little bit of like a side tangent, but this is obviously just my view on this. James Gunn got fired for saying, some really offensive and insensitive things toward pedophilia and, victims of rape, which is a real crime. And He got fired. Good. I believe that, if someone does that, they should get fired. But then Gina Carano, who worked on The Mandalorian and with Lucasfilm, gets fired for simply saying, at least in the way I interpreted it, was the fact that she's saying she doesn't want the current political spectrum to become like that of, an atrocity that we all know. I like, you can look up the story yourself if you don't know the full story, but you get what I'm saying. She's simply saying she doesn't want it to turn into that, which is a perfectly justified and, reasonable concern. But she gets fired and not rehired. But James Gunn gets fired and rehired, and now he's back making movies like The Suicide Squad, which just, it looks like a shit movie, frankly. So, it's just, it bothers me. That shows kind of the sexism inside of the companies themselves, right? It's like they're just cowardly. They're like, okay, we can fire the women, and we're not going to rehire them, but we can fire and rehire James Gunn like 3 months later or some shit over saying, I don't care if James Gunn said it years ago, even if he said it 5 years before or whatever the fuck, excuse my language, he still said it. He should have known back then that it was wrong. I'm sick of, the idea that, we can't judge, the past people for the things that people do in the past on, the present. I think the idea that people don't know these things are wrong when they do them originally, it's like, okay, rape was wrong 5 years ago, it's still wrong now. It doesn't matter when he said it, it's still bad. So the fact that he got fired and rehired is just ridiculous to me. He shouldn't be working in the industry. He shouldn't be working for that company anymore. They should have rehired him. And that's why I don't want to watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And it's just, it's something that's in all these franchises. Like, I get, sometimes I understand the way they do it. Like, in Iron Man, they kind of objectify women in that film because it's part of Tony Stark's character arc. He has to kind of grow, and I understand that. That one makes sense to me. And, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of makes sense because it's kind of like a throwback 80s thing, and that's the way that movies were like in the 80s. I get that, kind of, to some extent. But just in every movie, do we have to do this? No, we don't. And just, it bothers me because it feels like they're acting as though they're portraying people in a progressive manner, like, oh, see, people can be badass, but we also have to objectify them. And it's like you're regressing. You aren't progressing, despite what you're saying. And, just all the hypocrisy inside of the politics of it all. And then, it's not just that. It's that the movies and the shows, they aren't good. They aren't even that good, And so I'm going to kind of move on from the political side of it. That's kind of the reason why I don't like it in that regard, is because of, Marvel Studios. I don't like Kevin Feige. He seems weird. I don't really like a lot of the directors. I don't like the Russo brothers. I don't like them. Like, they just seem like weird people, And so we're just going to move on from that to just the fact that I don't feel like the movies or the shows right now are very good. But I don't think it's impossible to make something good. I really hated WandaVision. I think that's just the writing. I understand some of that may have been due to the COVID pandemic, like, kind of halting the production, and, like a lot of productions have been hurt by the pandemic. I understand that. But just the lack of, even just thought put into these narratives, and, just like how bad it is. Like, WandaVision is a story about a depressed person, and at the end, she runs away with no consequences for her actions, and then acts as though those that she enslaved, like, are the ones that don't understand her pain. It's just, it's such a selfish story. Like, Wanda's not a heroic character. This is not, like, an inspirational hero. I don't like Wanda. Like I don't like that story. Like, that's just like the most like anti-superhero thing. If you want to make Wanda a villain, then make her a villain. But they don't make Wanda a villain in that show. She's really the main villain, whereas Agatha has just kind of been hanging out in the background. Like, she's done like a couple things like to manipulate Wanda herself. But Wanda's been the one enslaving this town, hurting the people. And then they try to make this random character, Agatha the Witch, show up out of nowhere to be the main villain. But if we just think about it percentage-wise, she's done far less evil things than Wanda, at least as far as we're shown. So why should I be rooting for Wanda? Like, just that whole show was a mess. And then just going back to, like, all the other movies, just narrative-wise, storytelling-wise, it doesn't resonate with me anymore. Maybe I'm getting older, but I know there are a lot of people that are my age and older that like this stuff still. My dad is in his late 50s. He's going to be 60 next year, and he still likes this stuff. He went to see Black Widow, and he liked it, and that's fine. I'm glad that there's an audience for it, but, that's not me. I'm not that, maybe it is because I'm getting older. Like, when I look back at the movies now, like, it's not even the fact that I feel like there's still people acting on the internet like Marvel is now going downhill. The MCU is not the golden standard that it once was. And I ask of you, look back, and was it ever a golden standard? Was it ever that good? Because if you compare any Marvel movie to any other movie, it's not that good. None of the movies are actually that good. I realize that now, looking back. All the movies that I praised and loved, they're not that good. And, I guess you could say the same thing about Star Wars. They're all corny movies, but, like, Star Wars has a real lore to it. It has characters that I like. It has stories that I like. And even then, like, it doesn't have any of the issues that are as deeply ingrained into it as Marvel. Like, the characters aren't unlikable, and it just I like the world of Star Wars, but Marvel is so dependent on the characters, and at this point the characters are so unmemorable and interchangeable that it doesn't matter anymore. They're all quipping, joking guys. It doesn't matter. Like, there are a couple that are different, like Black Panther is a more stoic character, granted, but they surround him with so many other quippy, silly characters in his own movie that his presence is just not really felt there at all, That's kind of one example. Like, he's a less, silly character. But all of them feel the same. Like, the Loki TV show, from what I've heard about it, it's mainly about this TVA plotline. It's not even about Loki. There's not a good reason why it's about Loki. I heard one line in the final episode where girl Loki talks to Loki, and she's like, or Loki says to girl Loki, who he's fallen in love with for some reason, he's like, oh, we are actually it was never going to work because I can't be trusted and you can't trust anyone. But I'm like, that could be any other character. Like, you could have frickin' Ant-Man show up at the TVA and it wouldn't change the plot. That's how interchangeable these characters have become. Loki's character arc ended. Now it's like, it feels like they can't, and it also feels like they can't rely, they feel like they can't rely on the new star power. Like, they aren't going to bother relying on Simu Liu to market Shang-Chi. Rather, they're going to throw in stuff like Abomination and Easter eggs to other movies. Oh my god, it's Abomination from 13 years ago in the franchise, and get excited for that. Not the fact that we have a lesser-known star. Why don't you let the star power market the movie for itself? But no, we have to rely on past things and references and stuff like that. And I don't get invested in that. Like, references and Easter eggs don't make a story. They don't make a story. They can be fun when the story you're telling is good as is. And I feel like Star Wars has handled that well recently with stuff like The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch, but Marvel can't do that anymore. It feels like they aren't going to bother relying on the actual star power, and they're just going to rely on references and then the past. Like, Loki, they're just relying on Loki's star power, Tom Hiddleston's star power, that is, to make that show popular. The actual story, from what I can tell, isn't even interesting. It's not even about Loki, and that's how interchangeable all these characters have become, is that you could tell that story about literally any Marvel character going to the TVA or whatever. It doesn't matter. The characters are so interchangeable. Everything is just bland and boring, and I'm not interested in it. Obviously, this is my opinion, of course, but there are real issues, with the way the franchise is going, and it's like, the golden standard that people think it is, I don't feel like it is that anymore for sure, but I don't feel like it ever was. I feel like, I'm kind of done with that phase, I was into it and when I was younger, but now I'm just kind of like, I'm out of it. I'm not as into it anymore, and, I just kind of wanted to give kind of a more clear explanation of why I don't like Marvel. There's a lot to do with the people behind it, the way they portray certain groups of people, And not just that, but also that I don't feel like the quality of the writing of the shows is actually that good. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, to me, was kind of like, it was great because the people behind it didn't give in to the demands of the studio. There's a scene towards the beginning of the show where Sam and his sister go to the bank, and they won't give him a bank loan, basically because they're racist. And Marvel Studios, from what I heard from behind the scenes, wanted them to cut it out. They wanted them to cut that scene out of the show. But they didn't. And Marvel, I guess, just let them or whatever. But they didn't give in to Marvel's demands. They told the story they wanted to tell, and therefore it doesn't feel as restricted. That show was directed by a woman, and it feels like there aren't as many scenes of, sexualizing women or anything like that. There's one scene with Sharon Carter in the 3rd episode, but other than that, everything else in the show feels like normal. Like they portray people like people. All the characters feel like people. It's a story about people. It doesn't feel like, it's just the grand superhero stuff. It's just the novelty of seeing superheroes flying around shooting lasers fighting people has worn off. And I like that the Falcon and Winter Soldier is just more of a show, like more akin to something like The Dark Knight, more serious, focused. Like, I'm not saying the Dark Knight trilogy doesn't have its problems. They especially kind of got into the the not so good portrayal of certain groups of people with, let's just say, Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises. But still, all 3 of those movies are good, and Falcon and Winter Soldier feels more akin to that. It's stuff like that where I'm more invested, where it feels more real. Star Wars is kind of like something where I can get into it because it's fantasy, but it's also a palpable world. I can feel like it's a world that people live in. There's they deal with similar issues, the militaristic might of the Empire, like stuff like Thrawn even talks to the Thrawn books. It's just every form of Star Wars media, it has something that connects it, but it also it's not just the characters that make it interesting. It's the themes they play around with, the things, it feels like a palpable world. The thing about Marvel now is that it doesn't feel like a palpable world. When you get into stuff like multiverses and time travel where there's infinite versions of the same characters, I can't care about it because no matter what, there's another version of them probably out there that looks exactly like them. There's just endless variants of them. They talk about that with Kang, apparently, and Loki, the fact that there's infinite versions of him. So why should I care if anyone dies in future Marvel things? Why should I care if everything's just been overlooked by these omniscient beings? Why should I care about the story that I invested all this time in? They don't know how to tell the story, and everything now feels like Marvel is just doing it for money. None of it feels like it's to tell a good story. And when I don't think it's impossible for them to tell a good story. They did with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that's because they had the right team who worked on it and who, they kind of gave in to the demands of Marvel, I feel, a couple times, but they actually did fight back when Marvel kind of tried to compress their story too much into their mold. They didn't let them do that. They told the story they wanted to tell, and it feels less restricted by the usual Marvel limitations. So they were able to tell a really compelling story there. And I feel like, you just have to have the right people, and the people that are willing to work outside the box, that are willing to say, hey, Marvel, when you're trying to mess with my project, I'm not going to let you do that. So I feel like it's possible to tell a good story with, these characters and with Marvel, but Marvel themselves have become their biggest problem. It's the people who work under them. No, the actors, I feel like, are all good people. I feel like the positions they've been put in, the way they're being portrayed, that's the problem. It's the people, the big, higher ups. They're the people who are the problem. And it's also just become uncreative. It's just boring. It all just feels like it's for money. I get that, Star Wars, something I like. I get that's also for money. I understand that. But they also don't portray certain groups of people as in as bad a light as Marvel does, and it does feel like a palpable world, and it's creative, and there are new stories and characters, and you can say that the multiverse kind of stuff is creative, I guess, but it also takes away any palpability and any investment that I can have because I know there's no stakes basically. I understand maybe some of you will disagree, but this is obviously just me talking. This is me trying to be real with you guys. Because I get so many requests to talk about stuff like Loki and all these other things. And I just don't want to. That's just the real truth, the real hard truth. And I'm putting it all out on the platter for you guys in this video because I wanted to kind of just be truthful, is that I just don't care about it. So, you know, like, I'm kind of like, I took Marvel out of one of the topics that I talk about on my channel, on my banner. I'll talk about Marvel stuff that I want to talk about. I like Tom Holland. I like Spider-Man. I'll probably go see the No Way Home movie in December if it, you know, actually does follow through and does release then. You know, I have, like, trepidations about it. I have concerns about it. Like, I don't even know if it'll be that good, but I like Spider-Man. I'll go see it. You know, and I'm looking forward to, like, a Spider-Verse sequel. And certain things, people said Chadwick Boseman's final performance will be in the What If show. I might watch the episode that he's in, if he's only in one, I'm gonna guess. I'm probably not going to watch What If. I'm probably not going to talk about it. I'm probably not going to talk about Shang-Chi, Loki, Black Widow, any of this. It's just too much. There's too much of it. You know, Star Wars feels like it's been more spaced out recently. It's like, okay, we got Bad Batch, and then we're going to get Book of Boba Fett later in the year. It means I can have a break. I can talk about other stuff. But it's just like Marvel, they release in like 1 week both Black Widow and Loki, and now they're like releasing like within a month span of each other Shang-Chi, The Eternals, Spider-Man Far From Home. I can't keep up with it. There's too much of it, and for this franchise that I just have little investment in at this point, I can't do it. You know, it's just, it tires me out. I don't have fun talking about it. I realized that after Endgame, was that I just don't have fun with it because I was kind of lying to you guys. I was lying to myself about how much I actually liked those movies. Like Endgame, I was lying about for a long time that I actually liked and thought it was okay. I think it's a bad movie, and I've been honest about that, you know, and it's just the fact that I just am not invested in it anymore, you know, and I just hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from, but, like, I'm not going to talk about something that I don't want to talk about. Like, this channel, I get the, you know, the Marvel videos that I posted on this channel are the most viewed ones. They're the ones that people like the most. I understand that, but I'm not going to, you know, make myself depressed because people want to see Marvel stuff. So I just want to be, like, I just want to kind of get it out there. I want to make a whole video just talking about this, and that's what I've done. Just the fact that I have problems with Marvel, I'm not invested in it, I just don't really care. I don't really like it, I don't really care about it. You know, maybe that'll happen to me in Star Wars eventually, but, like, you know, Star Wars, I'm more into it than I ever have been. I've been loving it, and, you know, it's just something that brings me joy. Marvel doesn't bring me joy, you know, and if it brings you guys joy, that makes me really happy. I'm glad. But just don't expect that from me. Like, we don't all have to love the same things. And I hope that not everyone comes after me in the comments like, oh, you know, you're an idiot, you don't like Marvel. Like, that's what I've come to expect from the Marvel fan base, unfortunately, at this point. But, like, I know that you guys, my fans, like, you guys are nice, and I hope you guys understand. But I just want to kind of get this out there, you know, because I've seen so many people talking about Marvel. Like, the whole stream when I was building the Slave One was just people asking about Marvel. Have you seen Loki? Have you seen this and that? Just don't be expecting that from me. You know, I just want to kind of get that out there. I want to explain my mindset fully and also just express that I'm not going to be doing it. Just what you should expect from me. I will talk about the Marvel things that I want to talk about. It's my channel. I want to have fun. And I want you guys to have fun, but I'm also not going to do things that I don't want to do. And I just don't want to talk about Marvel. You know, I'll talk about, like I said, I'll talk about what I like. You know, I liked Falcon the Winter Soldier. I might see Spider-Man. If I see Spider-Man, I'll talk about it. But I'm not going to be talking about everything because I don't care. People don't enjoy negativity. I understand that. So I'm not going to make a video talking about Loki. Like, I gave WandaVision a chance. People were telling me to watch it. The first time something Marvel had come out in a while, so I watched it. I didn't like it, and I made videos talking about how I didn't like it, and people didn't like that because people don't like negativity. I understand that. Neither do I. So just don't be expecting videos on everything Marvel from me because it'll undoubtedly be negative, and I don't want to just make videos complaining because that doesn't make me happy. I like making videos with stuff that I'm invested in, talking about Bad Batch, stuff that I'm invested in at the moment that's cool to me, that brings me joy to make videos on. And it just doesn't bring me joy to talk about everything Marvel. So I hope that this video makes you guys kind of more fully understand my mindset. It gives you a better idea of what to understand in the future. And I hope you guys just understand why I'm just not really into Marvel or DC or just, you know, kind of the comic book stuff anymore. Like, I hope you understand. Yeah, I guess I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That isn't really the right thing to say, because I know a lot of you probably didn't, and you're probably kind of upset or something that I'm not going to be talking about Marvel as much anymore, but I just hope you guys understand, and I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.